Yes, ladies and gentlemen, episode 121 of the Journey's anime titled The Climax Begins. Ash's Masters Tournament experience just dropped, and this is another recap episode, this time about the Masters 8, and more specifically, about Ash and his Pokemon. There is also some interesting stats presented here about some of the other participants of the Masters 8, so let's discuss them. This recap is split into two halves, and the first half is split into three parts. The first is a recap of the matches that have already happened in the Masters 8, and I'm not going to go over them because I've already done that in these videos, so if you're interested, go ahead and check them out. But it goes through each of the matchups and gives a succinct summary on each of the matches if you haven't seen them already, so that you can catch up. The second bit of that first half is the more interesting bit, however. This is where we're shown attributes for each of the remaining Masters 8 competitors, and it's really interesting. Let's start with Leon. Leon is shown as the best overall competitor. He has the most balanced stat, with him specifically maxed out on attack, defense, and speed, and just slightly less on experience, strategy, and surprise. He is by far the person with the highest attribute on everything. This really shows us why he's the current Monarch right now. Not only are his Pokemon incredibly strong, but he is a genius level trainer and uses incredible strategies to beat his opponents. This shouldn't be surprising, but it was also kind of interesting to see this laid out like this. His opponent Diantha is also maxed out, but she's maxed out on defense and strategy, while being slightly less, but still great on everything else. And from what we've seen from her as a trainer, I think that's a pretty fair distribution. She doesn't have a lot of strong offensive Pokemon, but they're still pretty strong, and her strategies she uses are way more defensive oriented rather than offensive ones, like using screens and trick or treat and things like that. And while she is super strategic, she's also highly unpredictable, causing issues for her opponents. Cynthia seems to be the middle ground between Leon and Diantha. She's just as offensively and defensively strong as Leon, but her Pokemon aren't as fast as it. However, she's also just as strategic as Diantha while having more experience than her. However, she also doesn't have as big of a surprise element to her. You know exactly what you're getting when you're facing her. The issue is that she's kind of a brick wall. You know what you need to do to beat her, but her years of experience combined with her mastery of offense and defense allows her to control the flow of battle in her own pace, even without being the fastest. So, while you might be able to throw her off with some surprise strategy, she's never going to be rattled due to the experience in the battlefield, and trying to beat her is going to be a lot of problem. And finally, there's Ash. He's maxed out on offense for specifically attack and speed, but really lags behind the others in terms of defense, experience, and strategy. Most of the time, he has a pretty straightforward attack plan, which is overpowering his opponents. However, he has something that the rest of the field doesn't, and which is unparalleled unpredictability, which he's maxed out at. He's the only person here who can be in dire situations and make something out of absolutely nothing. He's able to use his environments and his situations in the battlefield to pull out strategies that can completely throw off his opponent. This has been something he's been able to do since the beginning of his journey, so I'm not surprised that this stat here is maxed out. He's the type of competitor where you can feel like you always have a chance to beat him, but he will require full focus at all times because he can turn the tide of a battle in an instant. These are, for the most part, pretty fair in my opinion, and give us a visual representation of the types of battle we should expect to see. The third bit on the first half of the recap is ranking Ash's most shocking battle moments, and using his Pokemon to do so. Of the top three, number 3 is Pikachu's using his tail and his quick attack to generate vibrations to lessen the blow of Sky Attack from Hawlucha in this battle against Bee. That was a pretty good one. Number 2 is when Dragonite turned Dragon Pulse into Draco Meteor by spinning with such force with Hurricane that it created a barrier around him with Dragon Pulse swirling, and then using the power of Dragon Pulse to create Draco Meteor against Iris. And their number 1 is the oversized Aura Sphere from Lucario that he used to defeat G-Max Duraludon versus Raihan. Personally, this was the least of his shocking moments to me. I think the Dragon Pulse into the Draco Meteor one was the best, but hey, that's their opinion. The second half of this episode is another podcast-style episode like the previous episode. A Dragon Rush Into Your Heart is the name of this. This time, it tells us about the story of Ash's Gengar and how it came to be, and how it was abandoned as a Gengar before joining Ash's team and growing with him. This story was sent by none other than Alistair to cheer on Gengar and wish him well. In the same radio show, we get a response to Alistair's letter from Elite Four Wickstrom. He talks about how he also had a guy who had a Farfetch'd/Surfetch'd, and he talked about how hard he trained with it, and then eventually, once it learned to trust its lord, aka its trainer, he was able to evolve and turn into a great knight. And here, just like earlier, we get a recap of how it evolved into a Surfetch'd after deciding to trust Ash more in the battle against Rinto. Finally, we get the ending song credit to play, but after that, we also get a bit of story for Dracovish. And this one is about how it slept too long, meaning it had to be revived, and even though when it came to be, it didn't know anyone, it had this strong jaw, and that strong jaw allowed it to eat, make friends, and make people happy. It's done in a storybook form, so the book ends with happily ever after, and I think this was the most unique way to talk about one of Ash's Pokemon. I actually really enjoyed this one. So unlike the last recap episode, there isn't much to gain from this recap. The biggest point of discussion, I think, is the stat screen for the Masters A competitor. Some people don't seem to agree with some of the stats there, like showing Ash with the least amount of experience, even though he's been doing this for 20 years, but to me, that doesn't really bother me that much. In the show, he's 10, he's still kind of a rookie, so it makes sense why he's shown as the least experienced, but we all know if we've watched the show for long that he has a lot of experience, so that doesn't really bother me. Other than that bit, and the part of the episode where we see the Dracovish storybook, this episode is entirely skippable. The best part of this episode is actually the next episode preview, which I'll talk about. The next episode is the beginning of the semifinals between Diantha and Leon. However, it seems the episode is not just focused on them. We're also going to learn a little bit more about Cynthia here, so I'm looking forward to seeing what we learn. But anyways, that is it for my review of episode 121 of the Journeys anime. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, like, share, subscribe in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on this episode. You can follow me on Twitter at TheRealPDGaming, and that is it. I will talk to you guys later. Peace.